Hi, everybody. I'm Norma Hatfield. I'm president of the Kinship Families Coalition of Kentucky, and I am here with Dr. David Weisenhorn. And we are talking about a series of workshops called PASTA, or Parenting a Second Time Around. And these are not intended to be deep dive into each workshop, but give you just a high level overview, have a little conversation about each one. And you can look at our website at kinshipky.org if you want to see all 8 of these discussions. But today we are going to talk about part 5, legal concerns of relatives raising children. But before we do that, David, would you like to introduce yourself and kind of share a little bit more about this?
Yeah, sure. So my name is David Weisenhorn, and I am a senior specialist for parenting and child development at the University of Kentucky. I work in Family and Consumer Sciences Extension, and that's the part of the university that extends out throughout the state to all of our extension offices. And so many of you may already be aware that you have an extension office in your county. If not, let me be the first to tell you, you do have a University of Kentucky extension office in your county. And there's someone, a Family and Consumer Sciences agent that works in that office that runs a lot of the parenting and child development programs that we offer through the University of Kentucky. And so that's pushed out to the extension programs and offices, and then those agents then run that. And so one of those programs that we're running, that your extension office may be running right now, or will certainly run one if you request it, is the PASTA, Parenting a Second Time Around, which is what we're talking about here today.
Thanks, David. And we just want folks to know that I believe these are free. You just have to contact your agent that's in your county, and they can kind of work with you on how you can get more information and participate in the workshop, or direct a family that might need it, or even a support group.
Yeah, or partner. If you're someone in the community and you really have a heartbeat to help kinship families, but maybe don't have a space, or maybe don't really know exactly how you might go about that, the extension office and FCS agent is a great person to reach out to, as they may be able to be willing certainly to partner with you, but also might be able to say, hey, I'm looking for an extra hand. You would be wonderful. And so for sure, if you're a family that could benefit from this program, it's available. If you're somebody in the community that has a heart just to work with families that identify as kinship families, we would love to have you help as well. So there's a little bit of something for everybody.
So we're going to talk about, I'm going to make sure I get this right, so I'm going to read it. Legal concerns of relatives raising children. And then I just see a little more info, legal issues, including custody, visitation, and child support. So why don't you share a little bit about this workshop?
Sure. And so as you've already kind of alluded to, Norma, this is very legal heavy. This is when we start talking about what are the legal parameters, or what is the legal process in order for me to become a caregiver. Hey, what does it mean? How do I become someone that has the authority to make decisions on the children that are within my care? Can I make medical decisions? Can I make decisions at the school for their education? And so there are some steps and procedures that follow along the kinship process, that there may have to be some additional steps taken before you're given the rights. What's it going to take for me to legally have these? Can I call these my children? How do I navigate the legal parameters if I want to try, or if the parents are no longer legal custodians? Then how do I become the legal custodian without these children going into foster care? Or how do I find financial assistance? This has just kind of been tossed on me, or this is just through a series of events. Now I'm the legal custodian of, or the kinship provider for these children, but maybe my financial means aren't as such that this becomes easy for me. Maybe there's something that I need more assistance. So we can talk about what public assistance is available, or child support, what Social Security or TANF dollars, which are just family assistance funds that are there available. What about the future care of my children? What about health and life insurance? And I don't want to overwhelm anybody that's listening, but these are the types of now considerations that you'll need to be able to make. These are some of the decisions that might fall on your plate that maybe you're uncertain of. Do I have the legal parameters, am I within legal parameters to make these decisions? And so this is what this group is for, and that's what this specific workshop is about. The way that we do that is that the agent would bring somebody, a legal representative from the community, an attorney in town that would specialize in family law and be able to come in and be able to help navigate some of these murky waters. A lot of maybe one or two of these meetings might just go over definitions. What's it even mean to be a caregiver? Can I honestly say that I have authority here? Some other things that might be considered when it comes to the legal status, and what does it mean to be a guardian? What's the difference between informal care and legal custody? All of these type of scenarios in words and what do I want to say, the language here. We work with that. We try and explain that the best as possible to give you a heads up and to kind of get parents on the same page of where they might need to be when it comes to legal issues.
Yeah, that's quite a lot. These classes are typically about 2 hours long. And so that's a lot to cover in a 2-hour window.
It is, and I apologize if that overwhelmed anybody. There is a lot of information, but one of the things that's nice about that, Norma, is that the groups are the way that they're formed and the way that it's typically worked is that these workshops will address the needs of those that attend the workshops. So part of the way this workshop typically starts, or maybe even the week or 2 weeks prior to this workshop starting, is as a group, you'll already begin discussing what are some legal information that we don't have that we feel like would be helpful for us in our current situation. These groups, we hope, are continuing to grow organically. And as you need information, you get information. So they're kind of adjusting the time. We don't want to hose you down and overwhelm you as I may have done just now, just spouting a bunch of information to you. We just want to give the participants of these groups what they're needing in that time. And so maybe the first group is just some basic information and we cover definitions and terms. And then maybe you say, hey, later down the road, like, David, I could really use some, now I'm trying to get legal custody. What's it mean to adopt versus being in foster care? I don't understand the nuance there. Can we have some assistance? And so these groups are, the intention is to get the participants the information they need when they need it.
Yeah, and I don't think that everything that you covered is overwhelming in itself, because I know personally, as a grandmother whose grandkids were in the system, that in itself is what felt a little overwhelming in the beginning, and not having the information that I needed when I needed it. And so I will tell you, I wish that this had been available, back in 2014 when this affected me and my family, because I had so many questions and I didn't really know where to turn to. And it is complicated and messy at times as well. And I can't tell you how many caregivers I have talked to that have said, the legal part is the part that they really needed a lot of assistance in, and they didn't know where to turn. And I love the fact that there's a designated class specifically on this, and you're bringing in somebody locally to your county, not somebody from someplace else, because every family court has its own little nuances. That's just the way it works. I mean, while they follow all the guidelines that are out there, the statutes and stuff, there's still, every county has its own personality. And
Sure.
I think that's really, really important that you bring somebody in locally. And the nice thing is you have that connection if you want to do a follow-up, or you want to do a further consultation or something,
Yeah,
you know.
and that's exactly right. And you even mentioned it early on, is that, an hour and a half, 2 hours, that's not much time, especially if you've got a sizable group or you have a lot of questions. Some of the responses to the legal information can be lengthy too. So that time, as you can imagine, can fill up quickly. And so, Norma, you make a great point. That's exactly the point, or the purpose of bringing in local legal assistance, is that then people, if they're one, we identify who in your county is willing to work with you and has that knowledge, but then yes, they can set up some additional one-on-ones if that's required. And that's typically the process. And I say typically because each one of our extension offices kind of operates a little uniquely, again, based on the participants of their group. And so they'll try and set that up. And if it requires an additional time just to come in, or additional hour, that we just work to try and set up appointments so that you can get further information or more detail about certain issues covered, we can do that as well.
So we have an attorney that's going to be answering some of the legal questions. I mean, they're experienced, they're certified, they're credentialed, if you will. Let's talk a little bit about the facilitators of the PASTA series classes themselves. And I know we spend a little bit of time when we're talking about each one of these, but I do that because I don't know if somebody's just watching this one and they haven't watched any of the discussions we've had up to this point. So I just think it's kind of important to cover that. But can you share a little bit about the instructor of the class, the facilitator of the class, and expectations as far as a caregiver that may be coming in, wanting to have conversations, looking for help?
Yes, and really good point to mention too. So the FCS agents are individuals that are graduated and have university degrees, but they are not licensed therapists. They are not doctors. They are not legal aides or assistants. And so while their job is to facilitate this group, it won't be to diagnose. It won't be to prescribe medication. It won't be to give legal advice. The idea and the purpose of that facilitator is to do just that, to facilitate discussion, to really identify what the needs of the groups are, what the needs of these kinship parents that are coming in, what are the resources that you need. And they will be the resource contact. They're kind of the guru of all things within the county. And so they're going to be the ones that help identify the resources within your county that will best meet or serve the needs that you have. And so that's their job. So a good thing to know is that when you come in, you're not going to a therapy group per se. While we run these as support groups, the support really just comes from the participants themselves and what they want to share. While you may be asked as a group member to share, there's never pressure on anyone. If you choose to remain quiet, that is absolutely acceptable and fine. That doesn't mean that you can't come, or you only can come if you share. We're running a group that wants to include everyone, but not pressure anyone to feel as if they have to disclose information that they don't want to. So good to know that it's not required of you, but we certainly encouraged. And a lot of that support then just comes from other kinship families that are experiencing the same thing you are. And what's nice about that is that they bring so much knowledge to the group, oftentimes of missteps or things not to do, but also they know a lot of they're resourceful people, and they have really enjoyed some of the resources locally that we might not know, or extension agent might not know either. And so really it's a win-win. Those that come, they share in the fact that, hey, we're not alone. And then two, they really stand up to the supports by sharing the resources that they themselves have benefited from.
Yeah, I think for me, that's the thing. And I hear it a lot, really, is the fact that you're not alone, because there's an awful lot that you're dealing with. You're dealing with the children, and you're dealing with the courts, and you may be dealing with medical things that are in a dire situation at that particular time, which caused the child to be removed, and that's a lot. But you're also dealing with, okay, now am I a legal guardian? What can I sign for the doctors, and who just explain to me how all of this process works, and having, to me, one, knowing I'm not alone. And while it might feel at times a little intimidating because you want to be private about what happened, it's also, I think, very helpful to share with others who have been through it and have that connection. But then on top of that, having this type of workshop where you still feel like it's a safe place and you can still ask the questions that you really need the answers to. I've said this before, but when I heard about pasta and the workshops, I was just so excited about it, and we want to get the word out as much as possible. And it's much needed, very, very much needed.
Well, and I tell you, of the groups that we've run, the participants have certainly felt the same way, very relieved, and have certainly benefited quite a bit from those that have attended. And I think that that's where the benefit really does. It comes from the other kinship families, and it really is an awesome group to be a part of. And yeah, so we want to invite you, if this is something you're considering, please do feel free to come. Depending on your extension office, the time of the group may vary. Oftentimes, the agent is very considerate of the needs of kinship families. Oftentimes, childcare can become one of those main needs, and oftentimes a barrier to keep families from attending these type facilitated programs. And so we have that in mind. What I've seen happen is a couple of things. One, some of our extension offices will run a group in the evening, and they will provide an activity or a group for the children to also attend while the kinship families are attending the pasta group. So there shouldn't be much disturbance from young ones if you'll be able to give your full attention there, and your children will be taken care of. Also, sometimes if that's the case, typically food is also provided, and that's free of charge. That costs nothing to the families. And so both those programs and that food are free of charge. Another way I've seen that happen is that those groups are run during the school day. Again, so the children are accounted for as they're most likely in school or daycare. And then the kinship families will be able to attend at that time. Again, trying to reduce those barriers of childcare.
Yeah. So if I wanted to take the class, all I have to do is contact my local extension office and tell them I'm interested in this, and then they'll give me a schedule, or they'll take my information and follow up when they're ready. It's free.
Yes.
Now, let's just say the series had already been running and we're now at class 5, can I still join, or do I have to wait until the whole thing starts over?
No, these are typically, and again, I'm going to go with that typical language. Most of them are open groups, meaning that when you come, you can just come whenever. Some groups may, and this is a may. I don't know of one yet that has done this, but they do have the authority, if you will, to say we want a closed group, meaning these are the group of people, and we're going to see this through one whole eight workshops. Okay. We're going to see it from start to finish before we add new on. That's typically decided by the group participants. When they join a group, some of those can determine, hey, what kind of group do we want to have? Do we want to have it open? Are people able to come and go? Do you prefer a closed group where it's just a select number of folks? The only reason that typically doesn't work is because there are attrition rates, meaning that some folks later in as the months progress may not be able to get back. And so those groups may naturally get smaller and smaller to the point to where we want to keep that an open group so that there's people always a part of the group. But certainly the group gets to determine what types of things are shared and how they're shared. And if sensitive information is shared, what we do with that sensitive information. And that's a pretty standard. What's shared in the group stays in the group. There's a respect for each other's dignity and honor, in the sense that when we come and talk about difficult things, it's for the sake of helping one another, not for the sake of gossip. And so that usually goes over pretty standard with the groups.
Yeah. Well, I think it's pretty exciting. I kind of want to recap for folks. You can go back and check out on our Facebook page and our website more information on PASTA. But it's Parenting a Second Time Around. It's a series of 8 classes. Today we talked about class number 5. But just to kind of give you a feel for it, class 1, it was called "It Wasn't Supposed to Be Like This." Class 2 was Getting to Know You, thinking about the child and the things that are going on with them. 3 was Rebuilding a Family. 4 was Discipline is Not a Dirty Word. And here we are at number 5, which is Legal Concerns of Relatives Raising Children. And I just think this is an amazing tool and resource for caregivers across the state of Kentucky. You can get information, not only this class, but the agents also have resource information for other services. I think you mentioned that folks might need to be directed at within their county. And I just can't say enough about it. And it's a fantastic tool. I encourage all support groups out there to look into this. Kinship caregivers, anybody that's interested. I think in another segment we talked about, David, even like family resource center coordinators, people that also work with families, they could team up with the agents as well, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
And so it's just another way that all of us can help serve children who need us and their caregivers. And in this case, we're specifically talking about kinship families. David, anything else you want to add?
No, I don't. I think that about wraps us up.
Okay, so we will put more information, links to how you can look into this from the cooperative extension offices. You can go to our site at kinshipky.org, or here you can check us out on Facebook and send us a message if you need more information, and we will get you connected in the right place. Thank you, everybody.